This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol, live. It's a freaking Monday. And I'm not high enough for this shit. So I'm gonna get a little high. Excuse me. There's nobody in here, so I don't feel obligated to get to the content yet. Oh, somebody came in. Welcome. I've been spoiled. Shelly, good evening. I've been spoiled. There's been like 5 or 6 of you in here before I even start. It was odd. It was odd to see the 0 down there. Like, what? What that news be doing indeed. Stupid shit. That's what that news be doing. I got a lot of comments. I put up the clip of me talking about Ben Shapiro and his review of the Barbie movie. It came at the end of the stream last night. So, you know, I've been taking bong rips the whole stream. I'm getting tired. Several people made the comment that I sounded drunk. And I do. I hear it. I even heard it from the beginning of the clip when we first started talking about Ben Shapiro and the Barbie movie. Till like the end of it. I was definitely getting tired and probably like took 3 bong rips during the whole thing. It was like, I'm not high enough for this shit. So, like, I don't know how to compromise between the not being high enough for this shit and, you know, not slurring my words and not having my board where I can hear myself. I'm sure that that compounds the problem. Warlord, I gave an update on Taylor's Business the other day. Last I had heard, it actually postponed the trial, but they had a hearing on Friday, so they've allowed it to go forward. And the first day of her murder trial started today. We've got opening statements. We've got body cam video of the cops going into the basement where they discovered a head in a bucket. So yeah, Warlord, we're gonna talk about Taylor's Business for at least 20 minutes tonight, 30 minutes maybe. I kind of have a crush on her. For those of you who have not been here for the whole saga of Taylor's Business, I kind of have a crush on her. This is a picture of Miss Shabusiness. We played a video of her attacking her attorney. That's all I knew. That's all I knew when we played the video. Then when I read the story of why she was in court, it got wilder and wilder. Apparently, I believe she may be a paranoid schizophrenic that hears voices, these things that aren't there. It's possible in my mind that Carly Russell, the woman in Alabama, said she saw a toddler. She might have very well saw a toddler. She may be like a suffer from schizophrenia or some shit. Because I don't want to jump on the bandwagon of piling on to that poor girl, because first of all, the cops lie, and it's cops in Alabama, and we're talking about a black woman. So it very much seems like they've gone out of their way to try to paint her as a monster. The Taylor here may very well be a monster. She decapitated a guy. We don't really know for sure, but from the news article that we read, I think she cut off his dick and fucked herself with it. I think, based upon the way the story was worded. They couldn't be as blunt as I am. They made it seem like she cut off his dick and fucked herself with it. So we're gonna hear. Oh, I'll let the prosecutor tell you. Oh, I'm getting choked up. That bong rip. I did a really good job of holding that back for a while. A cop. I believe this happened down in Florida. Of course it happened. I'm still not good. Sorry. Ben Evans. Jesus. Been having some problems here lately. Like I couldn't walk yesterday because of my back. I'm a lot better today. Still a little stiff. I can't catch my fucking breath. Maybe I should hit the bong again. Maybe that would fix it. I believe this cop down in Florida, he had a spat with his woman and then shot. I'm really choked up here. I don't know what's wrong with me. I really need somebody to come and smack me on the back. Sorry, guys. Sorry. The governor of West Virginia has endorsed Donald Trump, and apparently his endorsement is really hilarious. He saw Jim Justice, who's probably going to be the next senator from West Virginia. He's probably going to defeat Joe Manchin. Jim Justice is always hilarious, usually talking about piss or shit or something. And I think he does. I think says that everything that Biden does turns to do. Mike Pence says he is not concerned with potential calls for violence from Trump, despite the fact that earlier today on C-SPAN, a caller called in and talked about how he wanted to provoke a civil war because Democrats suck. Lauren Boebert is going to give her side of the story about the whole pen incident that happened the other day. We watched the video of her throwing away the pen that commemorated school shooting victims. I'm still not good. I'm still not. Here's your meme of the day. Social commentator Barbie giving her review of Ben Shapiro. It's very dry for me. The only time you will get Ben Shapiro mentioned on this show anymore is in memes. Him destroying the Barbie movie for 43 minutes. That was jumping the shark for me. It's over. No more Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has been Ben Shabargoed. We will hear about Taylor Shabusiness later on tonight. Welcome to the Troll Patrol. All that and more tonight on the Troll Patrol. We're going to start off tonight talking about the Israeli protests that have broke out after the Kissin it. I always fuck it up. The Knesset. After the Knesset passed the controversial reform plan to bypass the judiciary for elected officials, which is fucking wild.
Good evening and welcome to the News Hour. Israel is in an uproar tonight after the country's parliament backed a controversial plan to overhaul the judicial system by passing a law that weakens the powers of the courts. The measure has divided that nation, sparked mass protests, and drawn rare criticism from the White House. Stephanie Sy starts our coverage.
Wow. Even Biden popped up to say,
"Come on, man."
Opposition lawmakers chanted shame and stormed out in protest ahead of the vote on judicial reform. With nearly half the seats empty, the measure won 64-0. There are 120 seats in the Knesset. Prime Minister Netanyahu praised the passage.
Today, we performed a necessary democratic step to bring a balance between the branches, so the government can lead according to decisions of the majority.
The opposition condemned the change in the strongest terms.
I look at the coalition celebrating and ask, what are you celebrating? That you're dismantling the Jewish state? They're celebrating the moment they threw everything that connects us into the dustbin of history.
Today's vote capped a months-long campaign by Israel's far-right government to take away the Supreme Court's power to block government decisions and appointments. For the past 29 weeks, tens of thousands of Israelis have taken to the streets opposing the overhaul. Early today, demonstrators tied themselves together, blocking the road to the Knesset.
We're here to protect our democracy. We were left with no choice but to go to disobedience, nonviolent disobedience.
Over the weekend, thousands marched the 45 miles from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, while businesses shut down in protest. Adding to the mayhem, Netanyahu was rushed to the hospital Sunday for an emergency pacemaker implant.
yeah, that's wild. Had a pacemaker put in over the weekend.
That did not halt negotiations. But a weekend of last-ditch efforts to reach an agreement came up dry.
With this government, we can't reach an agreement that safeguards...
Drier than Ben Shapiro.
We will not...
Drier than pussies around Ben Shapiro.
Netanyahu had postponed the vote in March after weeks of upheaval to give more time for debate. Many Israelis and allies abroad urged compromise, including President Biden.
Like many strong supporters of Israel, I'm very concerned. And I'm concerned that they get this straight. They cannot continue down this road. And I've sort of made that clear.
But months went by without any signs of hope, and demonstrators returned to the streets. A key group leading the protests, tens of thousands of military reservists who for months threatened to resign if the bill pushed through.
It's heartbreaking. Really. I'm so sad. I can't even express it with words.
Omer Dunk, a former fighter jet navigator with nearly 3 decades of service, is now a reservist. But for the last 6 months, he's been out in the streets protesting the judicial overhaul. Having flown risky and legally scrutinized missions, Dunk says he would hesitate to serve.
He's gonna tell BB to suck his donk
If he can't trust the government's orders.
We are bombing targets in very crowded places in Gaza, and you can kill a lot of non-involvement collateral damage from
civilians,
and you need
innocent Palestinians.
The decisions are strictly lawful.
Reservists are critical in Israel's Air Force, leading many of the strikes in Gaza and Syria, and flying surveillance missions in the rest of West Bank. Military leaders say a mass resignation would hurt the nation's military readiness.
Nobody knows what will be tomorrow, I think. And I think it will be a very long and a very difficult period for the Israeli army.
So far, half of Israel's top commando unit has announced they will stop serving. Reservist Omer Dank says his time may also come soon.
If the government will keep following her plans, I won't be able to keep my duty anymore. So we'll have to look what is the weather in Israel society every day.
With today's vote fueling anger, the forecast calls for continued instability. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Sy.
For more on the new law passed in
The forecast calls for continued instability. Not need that salutation in the story. But who am I kidding? I'm the dude that does a show with a troll head. It's not like I'm a serious journalist. Who am I to fucking criticize them? Talk about wanting to piss in Dan Crenshaw's open eye hole. Give me that eye pussy, sir. If she had an eye pussy, I would certainly piss in it. Lauren Boebert. That was weird. Okay, that worked. Don't know what the deal was with the blackout there for a second. It's a wild night tonight. God did not want us to hear from Lauren Boebert. If she had an eye hole to piss in, I certainly would.
Last week, there was a video of me throwing an item away that I had received randomly from somebody in the hallway. I was walking.
It was a pin that represented shooting victims, and you were told about it.
Had AirPods in, tried to tell the man that I was occupied, and he continued. And as he was handing me what turned out to be a memorial pen, I recognized him as a man who came at me very aggressively just a few weeks prior during a press conference. He was so aggressive that he was apprehended by another member and detained by Capitol Police officers. So I want to make it very clear that I did not want to receive anything that this man had to give me, nor did I know what he was handing me. I was very vocal when the shooting took place in Uvalde, and that was horrific all the way around. I do what I do because I want to protect our children. I want to make sure that they are safe and secure. There were so many things that went wrong there. Of course, you have a mentally deranged man who did this vile act, but then also just the lack of response at the school was something else that called for concern, saying what can we do better? I even suggested that we should take the unspent COVID money and secure our schools better so our nation's most valuable asset can be protected. So if anyone thinks that I was disrespecting a child who tragically lost their lives at the hands of an evil person, I want to apologize for the appearance of that. But that's not at all what it was. I simply did not want to receive anything from this aggressive man who has been harassing me and my office. I felt you needed to know the backstory of that.
Is this aggressive man a constituent?
I'm happy to be open and transparent with each and every one of you. and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.
Is it an aggressive man, or is it just a constituent who wants to get a message to you? If it's just some random man, then you know how much I love C-SPAN calls. Apparently they had a doozy this morning.
Disgraceful. And Bill, in Medfield, Massachusetts, it's Bill on the Republican line. Go ahead, Bill.
Bill.
So here's the story. The Democrats had...
I'm listening. You got me already. So here's the story. Love it. Love it.
The Republican line. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. So here's the story. The Democrats had the Supreme Court for 60 or 70 years, and everything went their way, and everything was fine and dandy as long as it was liberalism. Now it's only been, 4 or 5, 6 years that it's Republican, so we're wild and crazy about, oh, boy, the ethics are so bad, yet we got the biggest crook in the history of the United States who took $20+ million. He showered with his daughter. He raped a girl, Tara Reid. And we're talking about the Supreme Court. Hey, let's get this Civil War going. Democrats suck. Bye-bye.
Robert, independent line in...
I love it. I love the way C-SPAN just fucking, it rolls off their back. Robert on the independent line. Oh, God.
$1 million. He showered with his daughter. He raped a girl, Tara Reid. And we're talking about the Supreme Court. Hey, let's get this Civil War going. Democrats suck. Bye-bye.
Robert, independent.
I hate that I have to know this. This is weird, but apparently there are people that shower with their kids. That is a thing. And like child psychologists say it's healthy to do up to a certain age. Nobody should know that story anyway. That's from her diary. That stolen is not the right word. She left it at a it also feels like kind of a setup, like everything that's passed through Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani. No, it's up to 4 or 5 or something. Focus on the family, dude. Says you want to shower with your young boys because you want them to see your penis and know that it's bigger to assert dominance. It's a fucking thing. But as I had a professor explain this to me one time in college, and this is having this revelation is wild. So think about houses in frontier times and even before that. They didn't have, everybody didn't have their own separate bedrooms and everything. Families all slept in the same bed and shit. So if the parents were getting it on, the rest of the family participated. That fucked with my head. You talk about fucking sexual anarchy.
You live in sexual anarchy?
And these fucks want to talk about traditional values and shit. So I don't know, but why? God damn it! Fucking right wingers and their weird obsession with shit. I read that as charged for swimming with kids, and I'm like, I'm leaving everything alone. I ain't talking to none of you. I don't like where any of this is going. Where's Warlord? I probably deserve to be canceled. Motherfucking Republican called in, says he's ready for the Civil War because the Democrats suck. Donald Trump has been stoking the flames of violence the last few weeks, talking threats if he has to go to jail. Mike Pence confronted. Remember, they chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." Mike Pence was confronted with the notion of violence from Trump's side.
This week, talked about how his supporters might react if he is charged and faces potential jail time.
I think it's a very dangerous thing to even talk about, because we do have a tremendously passionate group of voters, much more passion than they had in 2020 and much more passion than they had in 2016. I think it would be very dangerous.
Does that kind of rhetoric worry you?
Well, it doesn't worry me because I have more confidence in the American people and in the people in our movement. Look, it was one of the things that infuriated me on January 6th with what I saw, people ransacking the Capitol and engaging in violence against law enforcement officers.
They chanted, "Hang Mike Pence."
I would say not just the majority, but virtually everyone in our movement are the kind of Americans who love this country, are patriotic, or are law and order people who would never have done anything like that there or anywhere.
They chanted, "Hang Mike Pence."
I have more confidence in the American people than that. I hear my former running mate's frustration in his voice, but I'm sure the American people will respond in our movement in a way that will express, as they have every
They chanted, "Hang Mike Pence,"
to express concerns that they have about what they perceive to be unequal treatment of the law. But I'm not concerned.
He thinks he is going to get elected by appealing to the same people who chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." And yes, DJ Dub, you are correct. That guillotine was it wasn't even tall enough to hang anybody. Like, it was like 4 foot tall, and it was flimsy as fuck. But they erected a guillotine. It was symbolic of what they actually wanted to do.
Concerned about it beyond
That's
that.
pretty remarkable that you're not concerned about it, given the fact that they wanted to hang you on January 6th. I want to move on to the issues that you were talking about.
Well, Dana, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. I want to say to you, there's been an effort to take those that perpetrated violence on January 6th and use a broad brush to describe everyone in our movement.
No, I didn't mean to do that.
I'm just here to tell you, it's just...
No! The people that were there on January 6th were the most ardent Trump supporters. They are the most indicative of the movement. They're not some fringe group. That is the way the Republican electorate believes. It is wild that they paint the Democrats as the party of Antifa and defund the police and as a far right or a far left party, when nothing could be further from the truth. But then you talk about the actual supporters, the actual rank and file Republicans and the way they behave, and you're like, oh, don't associate them with all our supporters. Bull fucking shit, dude. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
It's not the case. The people in this movement, the people who rallied behind our cause in 2016 and 2020 are the most God-fearing, law-abiding, patriotic people in this country. And I won't stand for those kind of generalizations because they have no basis in fact.
Yeah, and what I meant was that it has the potential to incite those who were incited on January 6th.
Fuck you, Mike Pence. And once again, you are delusional. The only way you would have ever been president of these United States was if you had helped evoke the 25th Amendment. Snicks, good evening. Why would they chant hang Mike Pence? He's absurd. Speaking of absurd, if you have never seen the governor of West Virginia, a man by the name of Jim Justice, he's soon to be a senator from West Virginia. I have a strong hunch that he is going to beat Joe Manchin for Joe Manchin's seat. That's Baby Doll, his puppy, to his left. I think it's Baby Doll. Baby Dog. I'm sorry, Baby Dog. So here is Jim Justice on his endorsement of former President Trump.
I don't think it could ever become reality. Surely to goodness, Americans understand, loud and clear the leadership, whether you liked him or didn't like him, that came from President Trump, and the successes that happened, when he was our president versus what we have today. I mean, what we have today is just, I
had a right-winger the other day say that Trump holds the record for lowest black and female unemployment. And I laughed my ass off and I said, no, he doesn't. Biden does. It is currently lower now. So if you think that it was such an amazing statistic with Trump, then why aren't you praising Joe Biden right now?
Come on, man.
I started playing Nino Cooney, and the area of Ding Dong Dell is ruled by the Cat King, and everyone calls him his Meow-jesty, his Meow-jesty. Sorry. Fuck you, Jim Justice. I don't even remember what I was saying.
We have today is just, you know what it is, Dave. For God's sakes, a living. If President Biden were my father, I would not allow him. There was no way that I could allow him to embarrass.
Look at this fucking old fucking fart. If Joe Biden was your father,
come on, man.
You're like the only person older than Joe Biden in the fucking country. Look at you, dude.
Embarrass himself and continue on in this job. There's no way. President Biden is really challenged, and it's sad. And, others are pulling the strings in every way. But anything we touch almost is becoming toxic, whether it be Afghanistan, the border, all the different things, energy, on and on and on, inflation, just one thing right after another, whether it be crime or woke in schools it is everything we touch turns to do. And then there's people that don't like President Trump's personality. Well, there's people that don't like my personality. But with all that being said, I think that President Trump will be the nominee, and I think he'll be our next president, and I'm very hopeful of that.
Everything we touch turns to dew. Dew. That man's gonna be a senator. Remember that name. Future Senator Jim Justice will be a flip for Republicans in 2024. He will unseat. Because he's an insanely popular governor of West Virginia. He was a Democrat and flipped Republican. If I remember correctly, got elected governor as a Democrat and then flipped Republican. Chainsaw, good evening. DJ Dub, I don't know if I told you good evening, my friend. So I don't think he's gonna give like Ron Johnson or Tommy Tuberville a run for. I think he's cagey. He may not be intelligent, but he's cagey. He's not gonna be the dumbest fucking senator, but he's going to definitely be on par with like John Kennedy for saying like stupid fucking shit. I'm sorry, like I when I noticed you, I just must have been in the middle of saying something. I apologize. I love you and I'm so glad to see you here tonight. Oh, content warning, fuckers. A cop did his best to prove himself to be a good cop, but he even failed at doing that.
Breaking news, Miami-Dade Police Director Freddie Ramirez is hospitalized right now in the Tampa area.
He reportedly shot himself along I-75, and we have team coverage on this story at noon. We start with Local 10 News reporter Annalise Garcia live in Tampa with the latest.
I feel like I follow her on OnlyFans. There's no way.
On Freddie Ramirez's condition.
Andrea Alexis, we are learning more about what led to this self-inflicted gunshot wound according to sources. The director and his wife were at a conference, at a reception for a conference for sheriffs here in the Tampa area. It was happening at the JW Marriott, and they stepped outside. A passerby says that he saw them arguing. That person also mentions that he saw Ramirez at one point put a gun inside of his mouth. He called police. Police got involved, and nothing came of that we know of. Soon after that, Ramirez and his wife left the hotel after they were asked to leave. And that's when sources say that along I-75 by an area called Riverview here in the Tampa Bay area, he shot himself in the temple. We have learned that he underwent surgery. He's out now. He's in critical but stable condition.
A devastating...
Oh! Oh my God! How do you do that and live? How did he miss? Did he shoot himself like through the eye right here and he didn't hit his brains? What?
Devastating incident involving Miami-Dade Police Director Alfredo Freddie Ramirez left the South Florida law enforcement community in disbelief Monday morning. Multiple sources tell Local 10 he shot himself in the car while along I-75 near the Tampa area. We also know his wife was with him at the time. Rumors are circulating on what led to this shocking incident. Miami-Dade Police tells us Ramirez underwent surgery and he is now in serious but stable condition. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement and Florida Highway Patrol are investigating. The two agencies say FDLE agents and FHP troopers were on scene and will continue conducting investigative interviews Monday.
I'm in, running to serve as your next sheriff.
Ramirez recently announced he would be running for sheriff in 2024. The director was in the Tampa area for the sheriff's summer conference.
He ain't gonna be now.
JW Marriott on Water Street. Sunday evening was the first night of the 4-day event. Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, who is currently at the Tampa General Hospital, released a statement that reads in part, "Our hearts are with Chief of Public Safety."
What was he doing? He was doing something he didn't want to, like, face being caught doing, and she figured it out. This is strictly speculation on my part. Was he diddling kids? Murdered another cop or something like that, and she's found out about it.
Freddie Ramirez and his family during this.
Thoughts about the movie Saw? Paranormal Shift. Interesting question to ask. I think the first Saw movie is one of the greatest horror psychological movies of all time. I absolutely fucking love it. I still like fucking squeal like a little girl when Jigsaw gets up from the ground and like closes the door and like game over. Like that's mwah. And then I like all the subsequent movies, and there's a lot of like, God, it's been so long since I've thought about these fucking movies. He does, like in 3, you see him like fucking pour some wax, and then like that doesn't come into play until 4 or some shit. I love that kind of shit. That shit like, but let's face it, like Saw jumped the shark. I have no fucking clue. They all kind of run together. I can't do the last one. They're coming out with a 10, aren't they? I didn't even know there had been that many of them, but I thought I'd watched them all. There's like a Saw 3D, and I think there was one after that. And I think I watched it, but I'm not real fucking sure, right? Because after 4 or 5 is the one where the cop like gets in the fucking like protective case or whatever the fuck. And like that's probably like the last one I have like real memories. Like after that, they're all kind of just blurry fucking together. Got me like fucking. You want to fucking hear about Saw? Stay tuned. We're about 20 minutes away, if I don't ramble anymore, from hearing about Taylor Shabusiness. That's a story that's better than fucking Jigsaw. Freddie Ramirez, a cop in Florida, Miami-Dade cop, tried to make himself a good cop. We're less than 20 minutes. We're one story away. We're 5 minutes tops away from Taylor Shabusiness. Stick around. You'll appreciate it if you like the Saw movies. We talked about the missing Alabama girl. She apparently was never abducted, didn't see a toddler. She could have seen it. She could be a schizophrenic. She could have seen a toddler. I don't want to pile onto her. I feel like the cops are trying to make her out to be some kind of a monster, and she could just be having a mental health episode. And I don't want to pile on to, like, she doesn't deserve that. She doesn't deserve to be some national fucking story because she had a mental break.
Certainly the news that the police had suggested could have been the case last week when they put forth a lot of information that raised questions about some of the claims that had been made by Carlee Russell. But as we saw there, this is our first chance getting to hear from Carlee Russell, at least through a statement made by local attorney Emery Anthony, saying that she admitted that this was made up. Not just the kidnapping, but the abduction that she said led to her stopping on the side of the interstate. And she also asked for forgiveness from the public, a public that had become enthralled in this case, right? The details were so salacious. The idea of a child on the side of I-459 and that she'd been abducted trying to help a child, a good Samaritan. And as we now know, this case was made up. all of the details were. And this certainly is where it appeared to be heading, again, given what we had learned on Wednesday. The chief said that they had asked for a second interview. It appeared for a moment that was going to happen with counsel, local attorney Emery Anthony, but it did not. And then we were given, or rather police were given, the statement that they just read, essentially blowing this whole thing up. A story that had gained national attention in this case. It should also point out, though, that now the question, of course, comes as to whether or not Carly Russell could face criminal charges for those fabricated claims. And you heard the chief mention that is something that they are discussing now with local authorities on that case. That will be something that will revolve.
I hope not.
With not just police, but with the district attorney's office about whether or not charges would be involved and the severity or significance of those charges.
Get that girl some help.
There's been so much speculation in this case, but Carly Russell's statement, she makes the claim that she acted alone. Her family has been front and center in so much of this, right? Going on the Today Show, making public comments, and then falling silent, the entire family for that matter, after Wednesday's press conference. And now we are hearing from Carly Russell again saying that this was made up. Certainly tough news, but it is a resolution in this case. Muriel and Brenda.
Uh-huh. We don't know what's going on with her. I don't want to be harsh. And also, I don't really want to hear from cops in Alabama about a black woman. Because, there's a bias there. Alright, it's what you have all come for. I am not high enough for this shit. Taylor Shabusiness. Her trial started today. I believe this happened in Wisconsin. The prosecutor is going to give their opening statement. So if you do not know what happened in the case of Taylor Shabusiness, strap the fuck in.
The evidence in this case will show that in the early morning of February 22nd of 2022, the defendant strangled her friend Shad Thurian to death using a dog collar. That after he was dead, engaged in sexual acts with him, with his body, subsequently dismembered him using kitchen knives found in the home. Over the next few days, in the first phase of trial, the state of Wisconsin, myself, District Attorney Lassay, will present a number of witnesses who will testify about what happened in this case, and that'll show and demonstrate to you that the defendant committed these acts. You'll hear testimony and evidence.
So I think he just confirmed for me that she did indeed fuck the corpse. I was under the impression she cut off his dick and fucked herself with it.
Evidence will show that in the early morning of February 23rd, is a Tuesday, kind of a normal cold February in Wisconsin.
It's a normal Tuesday.
On Stony Brook Lane. It's sort of, if you know the area, the west side of Green Bay, Fireman's Park, West Mason Street, that area. Tara Packnage is kind of in her home and is awoken by a storm door shut. There's a door that's sort of abuts the driveway to the residence, normal single-family home in the area. Hears a storm door close and is awoken from sleep. It's early morning, 2:30, 3 a.m., somewhere in there. She goes and gets up. It kind of wakes her up, and she's aware at that point that her son, Shad, was in the basement with a friend, Taylor. They had been over the day before, February 22nd, February 21st, in that time frame. And she kind of goes and sees what's going on, right? We hear this noise late in the night, early in the morning, and she sees the basement light is on. At that point, she's aware that, they were down there throughout the day of the 22nd, and she goes down and sees because the light's on in the basement and she's seeing what's going on. And you'll see sort of the scene. Sort of go down the stairs to a normal basement. It's partially finished on one half, partially like a utility area, laundry, that kind of storage area.
You're going to see the basement here in a second.
Right next to the stairs, there's a 5-gallon bucket that you'd get at a home center.
You're going to see the bucket.
And she lifts a towel that's covering the bucket. It's like a beach towel. And unfortunately, sees essentially a mother's worst nightmare. That her son's head is in the bucket. Understandably, you'll hear testimony about that and the shock that caused. Tara goes and talks to her boyfriend who lives in the home, Steve. You'll hear from him. He goes and checks too, and ultimately they call 911. And that's how this case comes to be.
So many content warnings indeed.
This morning, likely, who arrived on scene and what they observed, obviously confirming the information that was reported to law enforcement about Shad's circumstances. How they find the bucket, and it has parts of Shad as well as knives. You'll hear about, at that point, a relative lack of other indicia of a crime occurred. It's not a significant amount of blood on the walls and on the floor. There's some, you'll hear about that, but it takes law enforcement time to see what actually happened, the full extent of what the defendant did in this case. By that point, they're actually interviewing the defendant, and she's providing them information that, no, Shad's still in the basement. The rest of him is still in the basement. And ultimately, you'll hear about what officers find in that basement. There's, as I mentioned, the living area has some mattresses, blood-soaked. Once you remove the blankets.
In the initial report, it stated that the cops asked her what happened, and she stated, "That's a really good question."
Clothing items. There's a tote, a teal tote, kind of a larger Tupperware that has knives as well as body parts of Shad. There's bags, a sort of duffel bag type item, a backpack, all of which contain parts of Shad's body, as well as knives that were used in the dismemberment. And you'll hear all about that. The officers who responded on scene and processed the evidence, ultimately locating the parts of Shad. You'll hear about then other things that are found. Signs of methamphetamine use, which the defendant later acknowledges happened with her and Shad right before this crime occurred.
Well, they've been doing a party and play.
Cleaning products. As I mentioned, you may have an idea in your head of this crime and what that looks like and what law enforcement would encounter when they got there, and you'll see what actually encountered. You'll hear about Clorox wipes and how the defendant would go to the shower and sort of clean up and use a squeegee and clean up the scene. You'll hear about the medical examiner and their team who arrive and are dealing with this situation, and it's determined that not all of Shad is located in the basement. There's certain parts that are missing, and ultimately in the van that the defendant is driving, gold minivan, there's additional legs of Shad that are found in that.
Additional legs.
You'll hear from Dr. Vincent Tranquita. He's our medical examiner at the time, and he will testify about cause and manner of death. And you'll hear about the cause being strangulation. Significant force applied to the neck. Significant.
Indeed, Dustin.
That you'll hear about. And then ultimately, obviously, a significant amount.
I appreciate you falling asleep to my content.
Hear Dr. Tranquita talk about that. That's all happening at Stony Brook. And 23rd, throughout that day, you'll hear about significant investigation that goes on at that house. And then you'll hear about then, a few hours after that initial 911 call, how law enforcement kind of gets word that, Shad was with the defendant, Miss Business, before this offense, and
Miss Business.
Her apartment on Eastman Avenue, sort of on the other side of Green Bay, east side. Encountered as she's leaving the apartment that she shares with another person, and you'll see that encounter, how the defendant is essentially, literally caught red-handed, blood on her hands. There's a significant knife wound that she talks about later was suffered in the course of the crimes. There's blood on her clothing. There's black sweatshirt, black sweatpants. And she talks with law enforcement for a pretty significant amount of time. Detective David Groff, who's seated at counsel table here, interviews the defendant along with another detective, and they start to learn more about what happened in this case and sort of the hours leading up to the crimes. Again, it's a significant and lengthy interview, and the defendant's providing information that you'll see jives with what law enforcement's encountering in that basement. She admits to, as I mentioned, methamphetamine use before this.
I feel sorry for her public defender.
Hanging out beforehand. They were friends from school back in the day, and it seems like they were in a friendly state at the time of this offense. And you'll hear then they go to the Stony Brook Lane home and go to the basement. They're let in by Steve. You'll hear about that in the early morning of the 22nd. You'll hear the defendant describe that what apparently begins as a somewhat sexual encounter escalates to a dog collar being placed around Chad's neck. And the defendant quite vividly describes what she then did. She's yanking on the chain. She's describing what's happening to Chad. It's evidence that you'll hear, and you'll hear it from the defendant's own mouth, that shows that this is an intentional act. It's not one pull of a gun trigger. It's an intense act. You'll hear about that from Vincent Tranquita, Dr. Tranquita as well. She's pulling harder, just hoping that he eventually passes, and it takes a significant amount of time. It takes several minutes. So you'll hear her say. After that, after Chad's deceased, she describes what she then does with his body, again, engaging in sexual acts, ultimately dismembering him quite significantly. She reports that afterwards, that law enforcement would have fun finding all the body parts that are located throughout the basement. Told law enforcement where to find certain body parts. Like I said, it wasn't obvious to law enforcement who initially respond to that basement what happened. It's information being provided by the defendant that later is corroborated by law enforcement. You'll hear the defendant admit to cleaning up, avoiding guilt, avoiding responsibility for this. You'll hear her talk about that. You'll see the signs of that, as I mentioned earlier. That dismemberment process takes that entire day of the 22nd, essentially. As I mentioned,
Where was his mom that day?
At about 2:33 a.m. on the 23rd. The investigation doesn't stop there, despite the defendant's confessions. Law enforcement continues. They send DNA to the lab, and it confirms the accounts that we're getting here. Blood on the defendant's hands, left and right hands, or Shad's. Blood on the knives, some of the knives that are used is Shad's.
I honestly should have been a lawyer. I would have been really good at it. And can you imagine me telling the story of Taylor Shabistis instead of this dude?
The clothing item, as I mentioned, the black sweatshirt, black sweatpants.
Toads!
Has red substances, blood on the sweatpants. All consistent with what happened, with the defendant's statements, with what law enforcement's seeing. So this case is really not a whodunit. You'll hear about the crimes that clearly occurred. You'll hear the defendant.
Yeah, I don't even know why we're having a trial.
I did it. And you have DNA evidence and other investigative tools that kind of corroborate everything else. So for this, the defendant's charged with the 3 crimes that the judge read off earlier. First-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse or dismembering a corpse, and then third-degree sexual assault. So we'll get into what that all means later. We'll have closing arguments where we kind of provide summation and provide all that to you. But for now, as you kind of listen to the evidence, count one, the state needs to prove that the defendant caused the death of Shad and that she did so intentionally. As I mentioned, you're going to hear a lot about that.
She said it, yeah.
It's nothing but intentional. This is not an accident. This is not a mistake. It's a significant act the defendant did. Dismembering a corpse for the purpose of concealing a crime, you'll hear a lot about that. And third-degree sexual assault, how she engaged in oral contact with Shad's body and inserted objects in his body as well after the fact. I know in body.
So perhaps I was wrong and she fucked his corpse. The first time it was like the first report we read, it made it sound like she fucked herself with his dismembered cock.
Here, some of you talked about, you've heard some about this case, and that's to be expected potentially. It's really important to stress that our system of justice is not based on media accounts, on word of mouth, on what you hear. The evidence is what happens in these four walls and what you hear and see. And ultimately, the evidence in this case will point to one area. The defendant is guilty of these three crimes. So again, this is just meant to be an overview on the evidence we expect you to hear.
I'm amazed she's only charged with those three crimes.
But ultimately, the case comes down to choices and responsibility. The defendant made a series of choices, February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Choices to use methamphetamine. Choices to kill her friend, Shad. Choices to then utterly degrade him after the fact. The choices the defendant made. And when we come back in closing arguments later this week at some point,
I don't think they were really friends if she did that to him.
The evidence in this case is clear. The choices the defendant made indicate that you're not going to have a reasonable doubt about what the defendant did, that she's guilty of all three crimes. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
She's got that look that so many of my girlfriends have had. The same look in the eyes. This is a hardcore content warning. Get ready to see the crime scene.
The bucket, I guess, where in the basement was that located?
As you go down the stairs, if you turn to the immediate right, it was at the bottom of the stairs to the right.
He looks like a chud.
Proximity to the stairs?
Yes.
After you made that observation, what did you do?
After I pulled the towel off?
Yes.
I had Officer Plunky come downstairs and just verify we had in fact found a human head in the bucket, and then we started to notify a supervisor and then ask for additional units.
And at that time, on February 23rd, 2022, did your department utilize body-worn cameras?
Yes.
Is that something that was operating on that day?
Stupid haircut.
Did you have the chance to review your body-worn camera prior to your testimony today?
Yes, I did.
If you were able to observe that here in court, would you be able to recognize it?
Yes, I'll be able to.
Okay.
Here we go, fuckers. People go mad in snowy places. Cute little house.
Okay. Did you
3:38 in the morning.
open the towel? I picked up the towel and dropped it because I don't know what the fuck it is, man. I have bad vision. And she's like, is that what I think it is? I'm like, I don't fucking know. What the fuck is it?
Do you want to just stay with those two? I'll just go see it. Where's it at?
So right there. Look right, there's a bucket with a towel on it.
Just keep it.
This is wild. Yeah, that definitely looks like a pad where somebody's been doing a lot of meth.
Dude, it is. Come here.
Hold on 1 second.
They're seeing horrific things.
Let's just. Okay. Hold on. Just. That's real, right? That's real low.
Good job on Law and Order with the reaction shots on
For everyone to.
shit that would TOS.
I know you're busy over there, but this is actually what it's going to be. It's not going to be a 961 thing or a 96 thing, so we're going to need more units here.
Yep, I could have told you what that mattress looked like over there before we even seen it on the camera. Before we even seen it, before we even saw it. It could have been my Appalachian coming out. Both these cops look like assholes.
Was that for everyone? No, for right now.
There's multiple mattresses stacked up. That pillow! All junkies have that exact pillow.
If we could get more units here sooner rather than later, that'd be appreciated. We've got
I wouldn't let her put me in a fucking dog collar.
quite a bit of blood down here.
Just saying.
For this rest of this house. We've got 2 people in the house for sure.
I'd also make sure she was properly hydrated while she was doing her speedy drugs. Might have prevented her from going crazy, but who knows? She could just have a screw loose. There's also if you are doing any kind of a drug, you need to see how it will interact with any kind of medications that you were on. If she was on some sort of psychoactive medication and doing speed, that is a recipe for disaster. So like I'm your proper dosage, your warning you about your usage and shit kind of guy. Yeah. So like if you're doing methamphetamine and you're on like a SSR or some shit like that, fucking that could be disaster for you. You don't want to do that. Just throwing that out there. So if you're on any kind of medication and you're wanting to do a mind-altering chemical, you need to see how it will interact with your medication. Oh, I know, DJ Dub. I know. I'm like a moth to a flame. I got one messaging me right now.
We're gonna obviously contain this area, okay? So we're having some more units come in, right? I mean, we're not.
And for the record, the entirety of Exhibit 2, approximately 5 minutes 59 seconds, was played. Officer, having reviewed the exhibit, do you recognize the video that was depicted?
Yes, I do.
Does that appear to be consistent with your body-worn camera footage that you...
You should always check how your chemicals react with each other.
Consistent with your recollection of the scene on Stony Brook Lane on February 23rd?
Correct.
I'd move...
But we don't know that she was on any kind of medication.
No objection. Exhibit 2 will be received.
So, officer, I want to ask a few questions about that.
It's just a possibility.
Which door to the residence did you enter through?
It would have been the side door off the driveway.
Okay.
Clinically! Oh my god, I'm so sorry! You goddamn! You got here right at the end of Taylor's business. It was the opening day of her murder trial. We watched the prosecutor. We can hear the defense if you would like.
Part of that door as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Hear the defense's opening statement.
You observed the bucket. It appeared that you walked around the basement area of the residence. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
At that point, did you see any other parts of a human body?
No other parts of a human body, no.
It's a group.
Did you notice any areas of potential blood?
Yes.
And where was that?
Beyond the stack of mattresses, there appeared to be blood on the floor and then small chunks of human flesh.
In other areas of that basement, did you locate any obvious signs of blood?
There was a dried blood stain on the mattresses, and that was all that I remember seeing.
After you and Officer Plonky, was that the officer who was also depicted in that video?
Yes, it is.
Officer Krumke?
Did other officers arrive on scene?
Yes.
And what did you and the other officers do at that point?
Officer Plumpke.
Sergeant
Fuck
Webster
you.
was next to arrive on scene. I kind of informed him of what we had up to this point and then what we needed to do next. We had two other officers responding. Once we got all the officers there that we needed, we conducted a protective sweep of the residence just to make sure there was no other people that we needed to know about, just to make sure that there was no other potential threats.
And you're the first officer to testify, so I'll ask you this because we've heard this term. What is a protective sweep?
It's not a search or anything like that. It's just conducting a sweep of the house just to make.
Yeah, this is totally exploitative on my part. This is like, there's not really a like political or civic value to watching this trial. This is just Justin is intrigued by this shit. Justin likes true crime. Justin doesn't like reality shows. So like it's not like I'm watching all the shit that comes on Netflix because like a lot of that is tripe. But like I fucking love a good like unsolved mysteries. I don't like there's a lot of podcasts. There's too many podcasts to get into. I love body camera footage. I love court shit. I would assume this is a pretty open and shut case. She fucking did it. Everybody knows she did it. She knows she did it. So, I mean... Speaking Speaking of cops that look like fucking assholes, here's a cop that I know for a fact is indeed an asshole. Let me hit the content warning. This your business thing. It's because I didn't know all of the details, and I found out all the details live, and it unfolded perfectly for us. Like, cause it just kept getting crazier and crazier as the story went on. I just thought I was watching a routine court video, and it was anything but. In LA County, where the cops are fucking Nazis, like, confirmed for sure, they are parts of different gangs, several of which are white supremacists. A cop apparently beat the shit out of a trans man for exercising their First Amendment right. That's right. You got the right to fucking flip a cop off. Probably don't want to.
Come here. I just stopped you. No, you didn't. Yeah, I did. Get your hands off of me. What are you doing? Oh my God! What the is happening?
Yeah, what the fuck indeed.
Get the off me! Get the off me! You're gonna kill me! Oh my God! Help! 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 Stop! 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 Give me your arm! Stop! 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 I'm not fine! Stop! You're gonna kill me! You're gonna kill me! Help! Help!
No reason for this bullshit.
I can't! You have my hands! Move your arms behind your back! You have my hands! Move your arms behind your back! You how? 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 You have me cut? Bro, what the Bro, help! 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 I'm trying to get my hands behind my back, dude! I'm not resisting! Stop! Stop! Help! What I'm being arrested for? You're clean? No, I'm
A cab indeed. Did he just say, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I mean, dude, you just won some money from the city or the county. Shocking video has emerged showing a transgender man being pummeled and body slammed to the ground by an LA County Sheriff's deputy. This happened earlier this year after he gave the officer the middle finger, which is 100% his right under the Constitution.
He's kicking authority in the balls.
I encourage you, if you're riding dirty, don't do it, because like fucking cops will fuck with you. But if you're feeling brave and you're willing to take a beating, fucking flip them off. Seconds later, Brock said he noticed he was being followed by a sheriff's cruiser. Brock said he called 911, but a dispatcher allegedly said, "What is it that you want us to do? If he hasn't pulled you over, he hasn't pulled you over." Brock eventually pulled into a 7-Eleven in Whittier, California, where surveillance cameras caught the February 10th altercation. In the video, Brock gets out of his car and is immediately confronted by Deputy Joseph Benza. He has some awesome glasses on. Brock's attorney, Thomas Beck, said the deputy injured his own hand when he took down his client. He said the teacher is now jobless and is still facing criminal charges after the violent traffic stop. The video speaks for itself. Beck told LA TV station KTLA Benza, was pounding at the kid's head. Brock, was diagnosed with a concussion later after he was released. He said his client was further humiliated after deputies at the sheriff's station allegedly asked the 23-year-old to show them his genitals before deciding which jail cell he should be placed in. Guy committed multiple felonies against my client and he's gotten away with it so far, Beck said. Benza wrote in a report that he felt his actions were justified and that he saw Brock cocking his right hand into a fist as if he was about to throw a punch at him. The deputy added he stopped Brock after he noticed an air freshener on the Honda Civic's rearview mirror, which he said was obstructing Brock's view of the road. Bull fucking shit. Rejection of my traffic detention and his apparent intent to distance himself from his vehicle further raised safety concerns. Benza wrote an 11-page report. I know from my training and experience that those who possess contraband items inside vehicles commonly attempt to disassociate themselves from their vehicles when law enforcement is present. The deputy also claimed Brock tried to bite him continuously during the struggle. That never happened. So he punched the 23-year-old approximately 8 times in rapid succession. Fuck the police. It was LA County. I guess that's what it's like when you try it in a small town, right? That trans man was just, he tried it in a small town and that's what happened to him.
It's so obvious. They only have certain words they always say. Mm-hmm. That is it. You can have a car crash, a song about a car crash, and they go, we need a statement. Racist! Sexist! They hate black people! Is anyone buy that?
Yeah.
You saw this, I listened to the song, I watched the video, what baffles my mind is, okay, you can burn the...
You're going to say that there's nothing racist about it, but that courthouse, famous for a race riot and racial lynchings. Now they're going to say it was featured on Hannah Montana, blah, 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 blah. It's a little different when Hannah Montana does it as opposed to this motherfucker making threats and alluding to a sundown town.
I watched the video. What baffles my mind is, okay, you can burn the place down. You can drag innocent elderly women out of a car and beat them, kick them. You can light churches on fire, but just don't write no songs about it.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's not my side that lights churches on fire, Jim Brewer.
Now you're crossing the racial tension line.
Exactly.
And what's really wild about this whole thing is, and this is one of the most hilarious things. I'm not gonna play the song. This is Jason Aldean's Rearview Town. This is called Rearview Town, where apparently he talks about how he got out of a small town because it sucks. As somebody from a small town, I agree with that sentiment. Here is Jason Aldean from over the weekend.
I love our country. I want to see it restored to what it once was before all this bullshit started happening.
See, I want to see it restored to what it was. When are you talking about, Jason Aldean? When are you wanting to go back to? Pre-civil rights? Pre-civil war? What's your MO here?
I love my country, I love my family, and I will do anything to protect that. I can tell you that right now.
It's just faux patriotism.
A lot of things out there And one thing I love, you guys know how it is this day and age, cancel culture is a thing. That's something that if people don't like what you say, they try and make sure that they can cancel you, which means try and ruin your life, ruin everything. One thing
I want to make something incredibly clear if you guys don't understand this. My audience is smart enough to get this. But anybody that might happen upon this video that didn't already know this, I wouldn't doubt that it was Jason Aldean's people who got the video pulled from CMT to create the controversy and the marketing. They wanted to rile these idiot-ass right-wingers up. And it's so easy. Just say you're getting censored by the left. The left's trying to cancel you, and it'll juice your numbers with that audience. Like trained fucking seals. You'll jump to the top of the iTunes charts because nobody that's cool uses iTunes anymore. So it's easy. You go on iTunes and it's like Jason Aldean and like 5 different remixes of some song you never heard of on the top of the charts. I did it. I looked the other day. That's why like it's like they juice their numbers to get to the top of the New York Times bestsellers, which is pretty much meaningless nowadays as well. So fuck all the way off, dude.
This week was a bunch of country music fans that could see through a lot of the bullshit, all right?
See through the bullshit.
I saw country music fans rally like I've never seen before, and it was pretty badass to watch, I gotta say. Thank you guys so much.
By rally, he means buy his song.
So I had people
stream his song.
Everything's going on with this song. Do you think you're gonna play it tonight? Do you think you're not gonna play it? And I said, you know,
What, my show on Apple Podcasts? Absolutely.
you know what I stand for. I've never shied away from that at all. And I know a lot of you guys grew up like I did. You kind of have the same values, the same principles that I have.
No, not at all.
Which is we want to take our kids to a movie and not worry about some asshole coming in there shooting up the theater, right?
Me too, man. I'm tired of it being just another day in a mass shooting USA. But your answer is probably more guns. Exactly, clinically.
So when somebody asks me, hey man, you think you're gonna play this song tonight? The answer was simple. The people have spoken, and you guys spoke very, very loudly this week.
See, it's a pussy-ass song. If you're gonna act like you're so hard and you're so badass, you should have a fucking, song that matches that attitude. But it's like that song's like a ballad or some shit. But I'm not going to let you out of here without hearing from a real musician on this. Jason Isbell was on, I think it was Morning Joe. It's always Morning Joe. At least we know it's not a book plug this time.
Grammy winner Jason Isbell is back with his latest studio album, Weather Vanes, which is not only making waves on the charts, but pushes for positive change. That song you just heard, it's titled Save the World, and it tackles the haunting reality of school shootings and the weight it places on worried parents, calling for a collective commitment to build a safer world for our children and generations to come. And the singer-songwriter joins us now. Jason, we're so pleased to have you with us this morning. Let's start right there with such a weighty topic for that song. I mean, some artists really shy away from controversial issues in their music, in their art. You didn't. You decided to take this one head on. Tell us why.
Yeah, I go right for it. You know, what I'm trying to do when I'm writing these songs, thank you for having me on, by the way, but what I'm trying to do is document where I am in my life, an emotional sort of document of my situations, my worries, my fears, my concerns. And if I'm being honest with myself and I'm being honest with my audience, then I wind up writing about pretty honest topics like this. It was tough. It's a tough song to write, you know. It's such a heavy and loaded topic when I don't necessarily think it needs to be. It should just be something that we're all working together to try to resolve.
Jason, it's Jen Palmieri, and it's just such a delight to have you on the show. Full disclosure to everyone, I'm a very big Jason Isbell fan, and I'm proud that Lemire pronounced your name right. I worked real hard on that, too.
Got it. Yeah, you guys got it.
Clinton Aid.
I was like, don't embarrass me, people. It's Isbell, not Isbell. We got it. So in addition to this, so Save Our World, I mean, the whole album, it's just phenomenal. But Save Our World, I mean, what I thought was interesting is you tackle this issue and the fear and the trauma that parents feel, but you don't try to prescribe a solution. You know, you're not, there's no refrain about banning.
She doesn't look like a real person.
That you're also doing this event on August 15th to raise money for gun violence prevention groups in Tennessee. But
her skin looks like a mannequin.
You know, what are you trying to achieve with putting this?
She's a lizard person. Hillary Clinton is a lizard person. I'm bringing it back.
So hard to help prevent gun violence.
First of all, Jen, good to see you, by the way. First of all, it's really hard to rhyme with assault weapons. Nothing really rhymes with assault weapons. And my job is to rhyme first and foremost. But, you know, what I like to do is be aware, and I like to make people on the other end of the line, people who are hearing these songs in their cars and their houses, I like to make them feel like they're not alone. I think sometimes that's the best that we can do as a songwriter. You know, because we don't spend most of our time studying numbers and statistics and ways to solve these issues. We're not politicians. Some people might talk like a politician. I do sometimes. But what I'm trying to do is let people know.
I assure you that Brian May is studying some numbers and statistics.
Oh, you're not alone when you feel this way, when you feel afraid. And I don't offer a whole lot of solutions because I don't have a whole lot of solutions. I just have this awareness that helps me write these songs. But in my non-creative life, I try to put as much of my action and as much as my money and as much of my effort as I can into making things fair and equitable and true and honest and safe and real for the people who are in my audience and the people that I know and the people I care about. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I did it any other way because I'm a very lucky person. I get to do something that I love.
Two-stepping an assault weapon.
Their parents.
It does.
Went to work every day and did a job that they hated, and I love going to work. So for me to be able to live with that, I have to really put my money where my mouth is and try to help some people sometimes.
The, you know, in that answer, you talked about just having people, making people feel heard, connected, giving them some kind of hope. And as we have discussed, your 2017 song, Hope the High Road, was not a small event in my life. It was a real lifesaver for me, for people who, coming off of Hillary having lost to Trump. And if people don't know the song, the key lyric I would share is, there can't be more of us than them. And also, but I'm not going to fight with you down on the ditch. I'll meet you up there on the road. And so it wasn't just, oh, kudos to Jason Isbell. He's willing to.
As I said, Hillary Aid.
Anti-Trump song and
Jennifer Palmieri or Pulmonary or whatever the fuck.
Like, great. That's like good for you. But what was really important was you showed the nuance.
Yeah.
It's a monolith. Certainly the South is not. You come from a small southern town. sharing what it's like in that small southern town. And then we have sort of the polar opposite, this Jason Aldean song called Try That in a Small Town, which seems to me to be, rather than seeking to have people understand each other, divide the country. And I know you've spoken out against that, about that. What's it like? What do we need to know about your small town, Florence, Alabama, compared to the portrait that Jason Aldean is presenting to the world?
Well, I think in Jason Aldean's song, which he didn't write, other people wrote, but I think that what it appears to me that's happening is these sort of unfounded fears that small town Americans have. It's being capitalized on. So you're drumming up this fear that there's going to be riots in the streets and people burning the flag and people carjacking and the knockout game. I don't know how the knockout game wound up in
A lot of country artists don't write their own shit, to be fair.
that people just, walk up and punch other people on the sidewalk. I don't know how this wound up in there, but pretty much all these things point to a very specific group of people as the perpetrator. And they say, you should be afraid of these people. And let me sell you something while you're afraid of these people. The way I see it, most of the issues in my small town in Alabama, Green Hill, Alabama, Florence, Muscle Shoals, that area, most of the issues there are based around addiction, opioid addiction, painkiller addiction, people not able to get a great education. Or keep a job, and I write about those.
And the lack of jobs.
Small town. I write about people who are
industrial pollution,
addicted and trying to dig their way out. Or people
right down the road in Decatur, Alabama.
Pride in themselves, because I'm not trying to sell somebody a product. I'm trying to make something that is art and something that is creative. And I think a lot of people are missing the fact that all the instances in Jason Aldean's song are just paranoia. I mean, I think it's actually, I think the people who wrote it, the people who produced it, the people who released it, those people understand what's going on. But a lot of people in the audience think, what's wrong with this? He's just saying don't do bad things to people. But it's the particular bad things that they're focusing on. And none of those things are really a true danger to small town America. They're a danger to this concept of masculine whiteness, and that's the thing that's being traded on here, and I don't think that's okay. I think country music should be 3 chords in the truth, and that's not the truth.
The new album, Weather Vanes, is out now. Jason Isbell.
And that's why I wanted to play this interview.
Congratulations. Please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to suffer through Jennifer Palmeretti talking about her recovering from Hillary losing in 2016. That was painful for me as well. And the music she cried to, apparently. Oh my God. Ghouls. She's a lizard person. Her skin didn't look real. All right, here's me giving the cops some props. It doesn't happen very often. Thank you, officers, for doing the right thing here. This is also your animal video. This raccoon got his head stuck in a mayonnaise jar. These cops actually did what they should do, and they tracked him down and helped get the mayonnaise jar off his head. Thank you for helping that baby. Because if the cops just did this shit all the time, nobody would hate on them. Like when I was walking down the fucking, yeah. He ain't gonna be happy when he gets released, so watch out. Who's Connor Thomas? I'm so confused. Thank you for freeing that baby, though. If the cops just did this shit, like I was walking down the street the other day and they were harassing a homeless woman. I made her grab my arm. I walked her down the street. If they just given her a ride to where she needed to go, instead of harassing her, possibly arresting her, then nobody would hate the cops. If you freed animals when they got their heads stuck in a mayonnaise jar, nobody would hate the cops. If you protected and served, we wouldn't hate you. Instead, you get all pissy when a trans man flips you off and you beat the fuck out of him. And that's why we hate you, you fucking pigs. So I make TikTok. I'm working for this channel. It seems to be a pretty decent sized operation, and they're pranksters, right? They do prank videos, and they do like long form 10-15 minutes on YouTube. They give me their YouTube videos and they want me to turn them into little 1 minute like TikToks. I usually kind of take like clips that I think go together from throughout the longer form video and like splice them together. I have a comedic way of doing it. I think they really like what I do. I don't know if they're good. They get the cops called on them like every fucking video, every prank they do. So they have to talk to the cops. But they're young white boys. They're charismatic and everything, so they get out of it. But like I'm subtitling these videos, right? I'm putting the words up on the screen, and I can't understand what the cop's saying. He's a blah, 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 blah in the background. I can't hear what he's saying to him. So I hope they don't get pissed at me because I put faint pig noises. I thought it was funny because it's a prank fucking channel. So, and they've not been antagonistic to the cops. They haven't been going around saying "A cab," but they haven't been like respectful of the cops either. Yeah. Well, whatever they were saying about I told my buddy, I'm like, these guys really won me over. Like they look like dude bros that I wouldn't be friends with, and they're running a prank channel. I'm like, nah, I'm not. Like this is like MTV shit or something. I'm not in like current MTV shit. But nah, these guys are funny as fuck. And wait, they were at Bed Bath & Beyond doing some shit. They got confronted. And he's like, it's okay. I've got permission from Mr. Bed and Bath. I did crack up over some of the shit. There was this woman. They had a loudspeaker on top of their car. They were just driving by giving people compliments. And this woman was walking out of Walmart with like two gigantic jugs of water. And he's like, hey ma'am, you've got nice jugs. I'm like, okay, you guys got good content. I dig this. I want to work for you. So I've been trying to do a really good job for them. I want to keep it. I'll make their videos for their prank channel. I have fun doing it. It was no prank that this fucking... If it was a prank that fucking raccoon got a mayonnaise jar in his head, shame on you. If you were doing it for internet fame. Do not harm animals for internet fame. Apparently that's a big thing. But like I would say the more likely scenario was he was rummaging through the trash and he got his head caught in a mayonnaise jar. And that's on him, right? He did that shit. He was rummaging for food. He's just being a little critter. Can't blame him for being a little critter. What they do. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We'll see you tomorrow night on the